My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz live from a neutral perspective, the result that everyone wanted to keep this tournament alive and well, and that's exactly what's happened. Pakistan winning, and their chances of making or sneaking rather into the semi-finals stay alive. Let's just remind you as to exactly what happened at Lord's. 308 for 7 was always going to be a few too many unless South Africa got off to a decent start. They were not the worst when they started, but then those middle overs, they just petered away, and some excellent bowling. Wahab Riaz leading the way with 3 for 46, but the pick would have to be Mohammad Amir. He caused the damage up front, and then Shadab Khan was sensational in the middle. A 49 victory in the end for Pakistan. In the studio, Zaheer Khan and Robin Uthappa, it was always going to be a few too many. They needed that X factor that Pakistan had, but South Africa didn't.
Yes, they did. But you just saw that by the 25th over that the required rate is quite a bit, and by the 15th over was 10 runs in over, and you knew that they really had a huge task at hand, and it would have been, the chances of that happening were like 70-30. 3 times out of 10 you probably get, you're probably able to chase that score down, but they've just fallen on the other side of the chart today.
I know it's not the things you say, ifs and buts, but there's so many messages on the Cricbuzz app saying, if only someone like an AB had been in there, how different would things have been? You can't say ifs and buts, but certainly they were missing a little bit of an X factor and experience in the middle.
Well, I mean, the batting has not been firing. That's what we've been talking about, and the injuries have not helped them. So I think whether AB was there, not there, I think still it's a team sport. So one man can only contribute up to a point. You can't you don't win championships based on one player. It's as simple as that. And you know that in team sports, the whole morale, there are a lot of things have to go right, and you talk about momentum, you talk about teams creating that kind of environment and belief. That is something which is very important. I think today what I really liked from Sarfaraz is that clever tactics up front, using his 5th bowler, getting him out of the way as quickly as possible, at least 5 overs, and then a wicket up front obviously helped him do that. But he was keeping his main bowlers at the back end of the innings, because he knew that he had enough runs on board for the game to go down to the wire and use his best resources at the back end of the innings. So that's something which was superb. We were expecting a spinner to come into play, and Shadab Khan did exactly that. It wasn't easy for South African batsmen to deal with Shadab, the leg spinner, and Imad also contributed very well. Yeah. So on the whole, I think that middle phase when the spin was on, South Africans didn't really, even though there was a partnership, they were not able to really accelerate, and that's something which was going to catch up at some stage. Yeah. It did with Amir coming back and getting important wicket of Faf, which pretty much summed the game for Pakistan. Yeah. From there it was very difficult for South Africa to come back in.
There's the story really. I mean, up to 30th over, they were still very much in the hunt. But if you see the difference between Pakistan and South Africa in 31 to 40, that's a huge difference, not just a wicket over 20 runs, and then you've left yourself far too much, because Pakistan got 91 in the back 10 and they were already left with the run rate going to 12, 13, 14 and up.
Yeah, see that was exactly the case what happened today. I think the fact that between the 31st and that 40th over, they didn't have someone actually take the attack to Pakistan, and credit must be given to Pakistan. They bowled really well. I think some of the guys who don't get noticed in today's performances would be someone like Imad Wasim, someone like, if Wahab Riaz hadn't gotten his wickets, he would have gone under the radar as well today. Both of them bowled exceptionally well. He came in as that 5th bowler to bowl overs, but you saw that he started holding one end up for Pakistan, which made Shadab Khan effective, which made Shaheen Afridi effective. And I thought everyone besides Mohammad Amir actually also bowled very well today. Their fielding still has room for improvement, but all in all, I think they would have been very happy with today's performance.
I mean, we talked about all the flash Sarfaraz got today. I think he deserves lots of pats on the backs, A, for the batting order, and now what you want out of a bowling unit. You're someone like Amir up front, Shadab in the middle, and Wahab Riaz with a bit of reverse possibly at the end, and it all worked out.
Yeah, it did. I think he rotated his bowlers really well. I thought the fact that he used Hafiz on top just to put that kind of doubt in the player's mind, and that there was a catch that was dropped in the first over, which could have would have been like a Midas touch. A decision made first up, and then that works for you. But you knew always that South Africa were under a lot more pressure, And with Pakistan having the kind of bowling that they have, you knew that they would have the onus on South Africa today.
Now, of course, cricket is a team sport, but when you compete for the My 11 Circle expert couch, it's an individual sport, and sometimes the morale can be a bit deflating if you don't exactly win it up front. But I have to tell you, the little extra satisfaction this time, and the reason I'm happy to gloat, is because sometimes you just throw a figure out and you're within 15 runs of it. Today I had it bang on, 259.
Oh, you did?
I said exactly 259.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, so that's a silver lining today, GB. After all that's happened in my 11 circle,
yes,
silver lining.
Yes, my 11 circle team didn't do all that well. We were talking about Hafiz getting that wicket up front. He was my captain. Had he picked up that, I would have got lots more points. So you win some, you lose some. 259, bang on. That's all I'll talk about. But from South Africa's point of view, yes, it was pride that they were playing for, and it wasn't the proudest performance they'd want to come out with.
Well, they've been having tough World Cup, and when you have just a tournament like this, things go in this fashion somewhat, because there was you can see that the dressing room is a bit down. Like every time you during the match, they play the camera on the dressing room, and you can see the sorry faces, the dejected faces. That is something which is understandable. I think that they'll have to. The good thing is they've played 7 games, so they just have 2 more games to go, but they have to somehow lift themselves up and go on a winning note. That's something which they have to look for. Obviously, after this World Cup, there will be a lot of scrutiny, a lot of discussions. The roadmap forward, the plan forward will be discussed, and yes, you will see a lot of changes for sure in terms of how the team is carrying themselves on the field as well. So that is something which always happens. Like you've seen this World Cup, you've always been talking about England and how they made that shift after that 2015 World Cup. I mean, World Cup is a milestone tournament, and you've always seen that the teams who have not done well or the teams who have done well, they have made changes going forward, because once the World Cup is over, you start planning for the next World Cup. You'll talk about, okay, 4 years down the line, where do you see this team? What are the performances? Who are going to continue for the next? What are the chances of players continuing for the next World Cup? Can they give us one more World Cup? If they're not, then you start seeing the changes in the team. For South Africa, I think there is going to be a whole lot of shift in terms of how things are done. Because you don't want such a potential team playing this way. They've just managed to beat Afghanistan so far, and there was a washout game. They've played well in patches, but you would expect maybe someone like Amla might make way for someone else, or there will be discussions around the captaincy. What is the right way? Whether Quinton de Kock should be made captain, or Faf is the able leader to continue. Aiden Markram has been captaining. Quinton de Kock has captain. So that's how, I mean, these are discussions which will happen for South Africa, and but it's important that they finish strongly, even though it's tough. We all know that it's been a tough World Cup for them.
But similar words we heard even a couple of matches ago about Sri Lanka. We were already starting to talk about them planning for the next World Cup, and they had problems. They were complaining about X factors. But how they've turned themselves around?
Well, see, that still stands for Sri Lankan cricket, because it's not just a, like, see, winning can only hide so many issues. Some of them are glaring issues which need to be addressed. Winning can only hide those kind of surface level issues, but something that are deep rooted, you really need to go in and fix those things. So I think irrespective of how Sri Lanka end up doing in this World Cup, they will have to look at probably a restructuring phase and then giving opportunities. That would be a different spectrum. But with South Africa, it's a whole other thing. It's a whole other game, right? You could see, I agree with Zakbai, when the moral within the side was so down. You can see with their body language, them expressing themselves with each other on the field when they know there are 30-40 cameras on them. You could see when they're in the Lord's dressing room, when the camera panned at them, you could see that they were dull, they looked a little desolate, and they didn't look chirpy, and it's going to happen. You can't, it's easy for us to kind of pin it on or say that if AB de Villiers is here, it would have been different. AB de Villiers was there in the 2011 World Cup, he was there in the 2015 World Cup. Things still didn't go their way. There were still issues that we still talk about today, that are very present in South African cricket. So those things need to be addressed, and then they have to find a way forward. But I agree, I think there's huge potential, and for a team with this much potential, to see them performing the way they have as an avid cricket admirer, it would be very disheartening.
Certainly would have been, but it wasn't me. It was everybody on the Cricbuzz live app who was talking to us, giving us their thoughts. But I don't think there'd be any discrepancy about somebody who is now the highest wicket taker in the tournament, Mohammad Amir, and he was expected to lead the way, and he certainly did. 15 wickets, joint highest with Jofra Archer and Mitchell Starc. And if you compare even those three, look at that sensational average for Mohammad Amir, 14.53. We talked about it briefly, Zaheer, at the start of the match about using the slope. It's one thing to say it in theory, it's another thing to go out there and use it. And he bowled from the opposite end from what we thought he might.
Yeah, two assists in swinger to the right hander, and Mohammad Amir, I think in this tournament is growing in confidence. You know, he came into the tournament with not much to back. So you know, he was struggling with rhythm. There was a chance that he was not going to be picked. Pretty much not been picked for the World Cup until some change happened and they decided to go back to him. And Wahab Riaz as well. I think those two bowlers are creating that impact for Pakistan in this tournament. And Amir especially, he's got wickets till this point. I think till today's game, but not been picking up wickets consistently at the top. You know, he picked up wickets, but those wickets gave him the confidence, and now you can see that he going forward in the tournament, I think he's going to be more confident in terms of executing his plans. One thing which I saw from game 1 to now is that his areas, what he's bowling with the new ball, is pretty consistent. You know, he's not trying to go out and out blast the batsman, but he's just making sure that he's getting the ball in the right areas, letting the conditions help him, letting the swing help him, and putting up those numbers which he has done so far in the tournament.
You know what's great about Mohammad Amir and Wahab Riaz? They came into the tournament with 2 X's on their back, and they've come into this tournament and turn those X's into X factors. And both of these bowlers are the X factors that Pakistan actually have today. It'll be very interesting to go back to all the people that dissed this Pakistan team against a week, like a few days ago, and go and ask the exact same people what they think of this side.
Absolutely. I mean, starting with what was said about the captain, the rest of the team. Yes, of course, there was a loss to India. India are an excellent team, far better team on paper and otherwise. So I think that's put things in perspective when you lose to a team like India. Let's have a look at their schedule that lies ahead. We showed you South Africa's schedule. Pakistan have an extra game in hand to South Africa. New Zealand, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. Now, from Pakistan's point of view, a lot of people were saying, including people in commentary, that, yeah, New Zealand, you know, after a point, you start thinking of law of averages. But it's not just law of averages. You say that if we are playing our best cricket, there's no reason we can't beat any team. And if we can put one over New Zealand, then there's 2 relatively easier matches still to come for us.
See, I think England, Sri Lanka has opened up this whole table for sure. You know,
mentally,
we are hoping that, you know, West Indies will beat New Zealand, and that will help keeping the tournament alive now going forward. But what Sri Lanka has done has put pressure on England team for sure, because now the teams are going to be playing different teams, right? So the back end of the table matters. Which team is playing who is going to matter a lot. And Pakistan, that way, the most important game for them is New Zealand. You know, so if they manage to beat New Zealand, then after that they are playing Afghanistan and Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, Pakistan will also be a very interesting game if Pakistan manages to beat New Zealand. So all in all, I think the pressure has gone on to England purely because of their fixtures. You know, they're playing India, they're playing Australia the next game, so one team is going to lose. Australia is on 10 points, England is on 8 points. So depending on what happens in that, who loses will be stuck. And if England loses that next game against Australia, imagine they have to play India, and then the last game they will be playing against New Zealand, right? So that makes the whole thing very interesting now. We've been saying that, you know, England has been one of the best teams in the tournament, but I think these 2 losses against Pakistan and Sri Lanka have put them in a very, very tricky spot, because you have to play, you still need 2 wins to be relaxed and comfortable on that points table. Because Pakistan has got that odd point. So Pakistan can still get to 11. I think getting to 11 on this points table gets you in the safe zone pretty much if you have a decent net run rate as well.
Yeah, that's what I think the whole story has been about. We were wondering what that cut-off figure would be. Would it be 12 or 11? I think a couple of the no results have meant that teams can come closer to each other, and hence 11 and not 12 could be the cut-off. And certainly July is going to be very interesting because we've got some really big clashes coming in there to finish with England, New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand, all of those, and of course the impending England-Australia clash on the 25th.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game. I love the fact that the tournament's kind of opened up at this part. You always know that in these tournaments, in this format, when you have, one team playing the other 8 teams, you know that in this format, it's always going to be interesting in the back end of the tournament, especially these teams that you don't expect them to do well, come out and surprise a strong team, then that kind of opens up the whole tournament, and that's exactly what has happened, which makes it like so much more fun as far as viewership is concerned.
In fact, let's have a look at just the next 5 games. I said July will finish off, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th will be very interesting, but just look at the next 5. Bangladesh, Afghanistan is what we're going to be previewing very shortly, but they do need a win over there because they're still very much contenders for a semi-final spot. England, Australia, Lords, an absolute cracker on the 25th. It's an Ashes rehearsal, call it what you like. New Zealand then play Pakistan. That's the game we were talking about right now. They play at Edgbaston, and then India versus West Indies at Old Trafford on the 27th, followed by Sri Lanka and South Africa, which for Sri Lanka is a massive game to continue to win because they're all marginally alive teams like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So all in all, the next 5 games, everything to play for these teams. But what about the individual accolades we had to play for, which is of course our My 11 Circle most valuable player. It was a very close run thing because we had runs and wickets on both sides. We had bowlers who were performing well but not necessarily the highest wicket taker. So who is our My 11 Circle MVP? And there it is. Haris Sohail with his 89 of 59 with all the bowling that we talked about. We almost forgot the fact that his performance got Pakistan to that 300 plus total. And remember, one more thing. He was not actually playing the previous game. He was brought in for Shoaib Malik. He said at the end of the innings, yes, it was tough sitting out. So I thought that I would grab my opportunity as and when I got it.
Yeah, and he played so well. He played proper cricketing shots, some of them a little unorthodox, but for the most part he batted really well. And I just think the way he approached his batting, the freedom with which he played is a cue that everyone within that batting group and even down the order, low middle order, can actually take from him and follow suit, and that will hold them in good stead.
And also, Zaheer, now going forward, we talked about these crucial games for Pakistan coming up. We will not, every time we preview a Pakistan game, we're saying, okay, this change, this change, this change. They probably don't need to make changes going to the next game.
Yeah, I think next game you will not see any change in this Pakistan team for sure. I think Shaheen Afridi also bowled well today, even though he just got one wicket, right?
Yeah, 1 wicket.
Yeah, so that's something which is now they've figured out the balance of the team, and I think this momentum what they've built, they need to carry it. And the most important game, like I said, is going to be the New Zealand game for Pakistan. If they and they can, I think they have built enough in this match to carry it forward to the New Zealand game, provided that they work a little bit more on the fielding side, because I think that is something in the crunch matches can cost you.
Yeah.
Today, you managed to take wickets and you are in the game, but it has been happening consistently for them in this tournament. So that one area I think they'll have to figure out in terms of catching, and ground fielding has been good today. I think they've put enough effort in the ground fielding, but it's just that catches. And so many catches going down. I think in the tournament they've lost. They've dropped. Yeah, in the tournament I think they've dropped about 14 or 15 catches so far, which is a huge number. So now they've managed to just come to this level where they're seeing hope. That ray of hope is there. So they have to put in that extra bit to make sure that the next game is won. Because if you're finishing on 11 points, that's the best Pakistan can do for themselves at this stage.
Yeah.
If you get to 11 and then don't qualify, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you don't get to 11, then there is a problem.
Yeah.
That's what means, that's why it's all wide open. But with Haris Sohail as the MVP, we also have an MVP, our Beat the Expert champion. Who was it with the most number of points? And we suspected that it's not going to be a 550, 600 type score today. Mahesh Kumar Pal from New Delhi got 477, but he still got more than Saurav Ganguly, which means Dada Ka Wada, he gets 5 times the amount of cash as our Beat the Expert champion. That's all we have from that game, but looking ahead, We have another huge game coming up between Bangladesh and Afghanistan, and I think more than the two teams on the screen, the big one is going to be the venue they're playing in, because Afghanistan just played a cliffhanger against India there. They're sitting and waiting. They probably haven't left the ground yet. They're probably still hanging on to the memories of what they almost pulled off against India. Bangladesh will be flying in or driving in from a different venue. So edge to Afghanistan there, but the fact that that strip, that square, will definitely play a part.
Yeah, it will. You know for fact that it's not going to be a 240, 250 game. It's going to be, no, I'm sorry, not a 300 game, but it could be a 230 to 240, 250 kind of game. And you know that the spinners will come into play, I think, which works in the favor of both teams, because either teams have good, high quality spinners. So you know that they come into play in this game. And I think the team that deals better to the spin bowling of the opposite side is the one that's going to be victorious.
And what will be interesting as well is the wicket which they will be playing on.
Yeah. Well, you said that 48 hours, probably the same surface.
Yeah, probably the same surface they will be playing on. So that will give advantage to Afghanistan for sure.
Little bit,
because the wicket was tricky.
Correct.
You know, it was a low scoring game, big boundaries. So that's something which will be taken into consideration by both the teams. Afghanistan will be aware of if they're playing on the same track, then I think it will work in Afghanistan's favor to adjust and adapt to the conditions. Bangladesh will have to be smart in terms of going in this game. After the last game against India, for sure, Afghanistan will be upbeat. Looking forward to the contest. So yeah, tomorrow's game can be interesting to watch.
You were talking about 240. We've looked at the 6 scores in the 6 innings played in Southampton so far. The highest has been 230 when India chased down South Africa's total. Nothing. No one scored more than 230 in 6 innings.
That's right. So you know that it's not going to be like a skyscraper of a score. It's going to be there and thereabouts. So you know that's that kind of a game. But you know, coming into this game, Bangladesh would have assumed that they'd be favourites. But after the kind of game that Afghanistan have had against India, you know that they have a slight upper hand, especially with the confidence that they have in their bowling department right now.
And having played 100 overs on that surface.
On that same strip.
Bowled 50 overs, batted 50 overs, they'll know that surface inside out. Let's have a look at the two squads for Bangladesh and Afghanistan. First, let's take the Afghanistan team. Looks settled. One is assuming again that with the fact that they played their spinners, Gulbuddin Naib said, our spinners can trouble any team in the tournament. So you'd imagine, don't change a winning combination, and for the moment I'm using winning in terms of that excellent result against India.
Daulat Zadran had a back spasm. So that's what Gulbuddin was talking at the toss in the previous match. So we'll have to wait and see whether that change might happen.
So that will be like for like with Aftab Alam.
Yeah, so Aftab Alam will go out and Daulat Zadran may come back. Apart from that, when you look at this Afghanistan batting lineup, you know that they are batting light. You know, they are able to put up a fight with bowling, and if the conditions are suiting like the previous match, then for sure their spinners will be effective. Bangladesh will be very keen on taking 2 points because you know this is the ideal kind of World Cup which they've been having, and they would want to continue with that run, having beaten South Africa and West Indies. They would want to beat Afghanistan and secure that position and create that pressure scenario for all the teams, because once Bangladesh wins tomorrow, then it's going to play hugely on all the teams, you know, and especially England, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, because they would want now someone to crack under pressure. You know, so it's all these now 3-4 teams which are going to be not only playing the game on the field, they will be watching other matches keenly, and a lot of results are going to determine which team is going where. And in this whole scenario, once again now the World Cup pressure which we always talk about, which was missing actually so far, you know, because the table was just kind of getting boring in that first 4 spots, is somehow now, you know, that World Cup excitement, that interesting position change, we may get to see in the next 1 week or so.
Yes, we talk about one big over, a couple of big overs changing a match. Well, one big result in terms of Sri Lanka beating England has changed so many things, so many dynamics. But Bangladesh team, what about them? It's going to be interesting with Afghanistan almost. It's like their home venue from the last game. So Bangladesh will come in as outsiders but as favourites. And well, in terms of getting an extra spinner in, they had Rubel Hussain coming in with Mustafizur, Mashrafi Mortaza. So there's talk possibly Saifuddin if they want an extra pacer, but they wouldn't want an extra pacer on that pitch.
No, they wouldn't. You have to see that Shami Sarkar also did a decent job with the ball the other day. So, he fills that role up as well. So now, if they have another spinner on the outside who I don't see at the moment, I don't know if
But they have Mossadegh as their...
Mossadegh is the only option I think they have.
Maybe him, but instead of whom? Because Rubel had a fairly decent game as well.
Well, it's Sabir in the last time who had come in for Mossadegh, so he has to replace Sabir Rahman.
It could be just that. That could be the only change. I don't see any other change happening. I think this team's doing well. As far as I'm concerned, they're favourites to win, but they have to earn it tomorrow from Afghanistan. It's not going to come easy. It's not going to be a dweeb of a game. It's going to be actually a proper game. It's going to be something that you're going to watch and say, okay, it's going to be a keenly contested game tomorrow.
Certainly will be. And the other factor we know is that anyone scores around 220, 230, 240, which is what's a likely score at Southampton, it ends up being an exciting finish. Just like the exciting finishes we've had, like today's Beat the Expert Champion, we're going to bring you the game day after day. So tomorrow too, download the app, get on My 11 Circle and make a team for Bangladesh against Afghanistan. The values are there. Pick your players, pick them judiciously. And of course, you've got Sourav Ganguly giving his promise, keeping his promise each time that those who can get more than him and that one person we choose will be our Beat the Expert champion. The other champion, of course, we always unearth on our show is our Joy Factor Unearthing champion. And who is it going to be? But first, of course, let's remind you of the question that we asked you at the very start. This was a fascinating question. In Test cricket, if it's Akila Dhananjaya for Sri Lanka, Alfred Hall for South Africa, Mohammad Zaid for Pakistan and Alf Valentine for the West Indies, then who is it for India? Hashtag Cricbuzz Live, you gave us all your answers. The answer is Narendra Hirwani, most wickets for their country in their debut test. Now that's the thing to remember about. That's a fascinating one to get 16 wickets that Narendra Hirwani took. We all remember that particular feat against the West Indies. And all the other guys did it respectively for their countries. Who's our champion? Let's reveal the name. And here it is. Oh dear. Oh dear. Why was I even building up?
Joyda was champion. Until I see Crick Rohit's face and hear him speaking, I'm not going to believe that's any Crick Rohit. That's Joyda.
See,
this guys.
Rohit, I hope you do know that aspersions are being cast because you're just so good at this that you're getting Joy's questions just like that because it's the quickest answer that gets in there. So maybe just next time you tweet to us on Cricbuzz Live, send us a nice picture with some nice sunglasses on and we'll pass it on to Robin. Well, that's all we have in the show. Looking forward to some great cricket. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Zaheer.
Thank you.
We'll see you all tomorrow at 2:30 as we look ahead to Bangladesh playing Afghanistan at the nice, slow, sluggish but exciting Southampton Hampshire Bowl. Until then, it's My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live.